Welcome back. So we're talking about the singular value decomposition, the SVD of a matrix X. And what we've noticed is that the matrix, if we write X equals U sigma V transpose, the matrices U and V are unitary matrices. Unitary matrices are extremely important in science and engineering, and so I want to tell you a little bit more about what they mean and how to interpret them geometrically. And in particular, we're also going to think about the economy size SVD. So this is an n by n U matrix. This is an m by m V matrix. But I could also write this as the economy SVD like this, where this is just the first m columns of U and the first m by m subblock of sigma. Okay? So what we mean by unitary, just as a recap, is that essentially U transpose equals U transpose U equals an identity matrix. And similarly, V transpose equals V transpose V equals an identity matrix. And they're different size identity matrices. Now, if I was using the economy SVD, then only U hat transpose U hat would equal the identity. This one would not be the identity if I use this, this rectangular U hat matrix. Okay? But U and V are unitary matrices. And essentially, the way I think about this is that unitary matrices preserve the angles between any two vectors in the vector space that they're transforming. Okay, so they preserve angles and lengths of vectors. So unitary transformations preserve angles between vectors and lengths of vectors. Angles and lengths of vectors. Okay, good. And so other unitary transformations, an example would be the Fourier transform. The Fourier transform is probably the most famous and widely used unitary transformation. Essentially, it takes some vector space and it's a coordinate transformation into a new representation. It just takes all of those vectors and rotates them into a new representation where things become simpler. Okay, but the angles between two vectors in our original space remain the same when I rotate through the Fourier transform and when I rotate through these unitary matrices from the singular value decomposition. Okay, I almost think about this like constellations in the sky. Okay, so if you look up at the night sky, you see all of these stars, and even though they rotate across the sky over the course of the night and the seasons, the fixed constellations remain the same. The angles between the stars remain the same. That's a unitary transformation as we travel through the solar system. Okay, and so essentially these unitary transformations just rotate vectors. They just rotate vectors, but they don't change the length or the angles between them. Okay, and so what I mean by this is if I have any two vectors x and y in my vector space, and I take the inner product of these two vectors, it's the same if I map x through this unitary matrix U, or if I map y through that unitary matrix U, or if I map both through that unitary matrix U. So this inner product between x and y is unchanged. Sorry, this is a big no-no. It's only unchanged if I map both vectors, both vectors through the unitary transformation U. Very important, sorry. But this is true for all x and y in my vector space. For all of my n-dimensional vectors in my vector space, x and y, the inner product between those two vectors, kind of the geometry of where those two vectors are with respect to each other, doesn't change when I map through U. U just rotates them together. Okay, that's what I mean by a unitary transformation. Very important. Okay, I will note that I have been using I've been assuming that all of my data in this lecture series is real valued, so that X only has real numbers and these are real valued matrices. So this is the real matrix transpose, where you take a matrix and you knock it over, kind of transpose it on its side. But if we have complex valued data, so if X is complex and we denote that by it being in the set of complex numbers, complex matrices of n by m, then instead of transpose, we use what's known as the complex conjugate transpose. Then we would use x star, which is the complex conjugate transpose. This is just a little aside, because in the book, I think we almost entirely use this notation to be very general in case we were dealing with complex value data, whereas in this lecture series, I'm going to deal with real value data primarily. So if our data was complex, then all of these transposes would become stars. They would become complex conjugate transpose. And what that means is that in addition to transposing the matrix, we take the complex conjugate of every single element. Now, if x is real valued, then the complex conjugate transpose is just the transpose, because the complex conjugate of a real number is that same real number. Okay, good. And the idea of unitary transformations is more general and fits in complex valued vector spaces too, which is why I'm bringing this up. Okay, good. So unitary transformations just rotate your vector space so that angles and lengths are preserved. And that means that the basic geometric structure, so if you think of faces in the vector space of images, you want to preserve angles and lengths because that's how you tell person A from person B. Like, that's very, very important, is understanding the geometry, how these vectors are related in that vector space. So it's key that these unitary transformations encode that information. Okay, now there's a geometric perspective that I also really like to take, and I'm going to draw here, which is if we think of our matrix X, and I'm going to draw it as, again, a tall, skinny matrix here, it can multiply vectors on the right or on the left. It can multiply these little kind of V vectors on the right, or it can multiply these long kind of U transpose vectors on the left. And if I map x times v, I'm going to get something that's taller, and taller than v. And if I map x times this u transpose, I'm going to get something that's shorter out than u. Okay, and so you can think of this interesting geometric interpretation of what this matrix X does in terms of these unitary transformations. So let's say I have a sphere of all possible points in the vector space Rn in kind of my column space of X. This is a sphere of unit length of all unit length vectors in Rn. And let's give this thing a little vector name. Sorry, this is Rm. Rm, the set of all vectors in the row space of X. And I'm going to call this little vector V. Okay. Now, if I multiply all of these vectors V by my X matrix, so I map all of these X times V, then for all of those little V matrices, I'm going to get a tall U vector out, the size of the column of X. And so I'm going to map into an N dimensional space by multiplying all of these by X. And that's going to sweep out this large ellipsoid. I didn't draw the best ellipsoid in the world, but it's a large ellipsoid. The sphere, if you multiply it by X on the left, maps into an ellipsoid. And the lengths of these principal axes are specifically given by the singular values of X. So this long length, these directions stretch. There are directions here that stretch through X, and there's some directions that get smashed and compacted through X. And the orientation of this ellipsoid is somehow given by the left singular vectors of X. So those left singular vectors in U can represent kind of the orientation of this ellipsoid, and the singular values tell me how they're going to be elongated or squished. Okay, I'm being a little bit vague here because I'm going to code this up in a little bit, and we're going to actually work through all of the nuts and bolts of computing this sphere and mapping it through X, computing this ellipsoid. So you're going to get the quantitative picture of this soon. But I just want you to think this matrix X can multiply vectors on the right or vectors on the left, and that corresponds to a change, to a rotation of space, okay? Now remember, U is unitary and doesn't change the lengths or angles of things, but X itself is not unitary, and so that's why this gets deformed and stretched. Now similarly, if I take the set of unit vectors in Rn, I can multiply those on the left, these little u times x's, and I get another elongated ellipsoid in my v space, in my m-dimensional space. And again, the orientation of this ellipsoid will now be determined by these singular vectors, by that rotation, and the elongation will, again, still be given by the same singular values. Okay, so they'll have the same rough extents. And the last point I want to make is that, again, this X matrix doesn't have to be square. So if it's rectangular, these spaces don't have the same dimension. So let's give a concrete example. Let's say that X is like a 2 by 3 matrix. Then if I have my 3-dimensional sphere in Rm, and I map it through this X matrix, then it maps down to a 2-dimensional space. So there's an ellipsoid in 2 dimensions in my 2-dimensional U space. Okay, so these don't have to have the same dimension, but I just want you to kind of be aware of the geometric interpretation of the singular value decomposition. These unitary matrices are very, very powerful. Again, they're kind of the data-driven generalization of Fourier transform matrices that rotate a coordinate transformation of your data into another coordinate system where things might become simpler, okay, in terms of these principal directions that explain most of the variance of the column space or the row space. Okay, so we'll code this up and we'll see how this actually works in software, and that'll give you a little bit more of a quantitative picture of how these geometric transformations work. Okay, thank you.